Welcome back. This is episode 3, part 2 with Marta Canneri.
And so one thing that I'm very curious about, and I think would be very insightful for other secretary generals, is what has been one of the most challenging aspects of being in your position?
Another great question. I think part of it is the fact that working on a secretariat and working to organize a conference, it feels like you're doing an adult's job. It feels like the level of responsibility an adult would have, but you're still working with other college-aged peers of yours and often friends. So while the responsibility is high, and I mean, you're managing budgets that you've never really even realized you would come close to. So while that aspect very much feels like you're a grown-up, you're still working with friends and you're still technically in a student club. So a lot of times when I was managing this team of 12 people, I had to take a step back and realize we're all in a club together. Fundamentally, this is an extracurricular we're all just really involved in and really passionate about. But sometimes you do have to take that step back and realize that it is just a club, and you're working with a lot of your friends. And that's on one hand, and that's difficult, and it's also difficult to kind of, I don't, this word sounds weird, but to kind of discipline your friends, you know? Some of the people on the secretariat are some of my closest friends. I was on the secretariat with them last year, or we came up in the club together, or we've competed together. And it feels weird to be quote unquote, quote, their boss, you know, to have to call them up and say, listen, you didn't complete this by the deadline, and that's a problem, because they're my friends. So that's definitely been a really challenging part. And it's also been incredibly rewarding, and it's taught me a really great lesson. Like, it's taught me how to talk to people and how to deal with people and how to give them feedback and how to work with people who are your friends and how to tell your friends something that you might not want to tell them, or something that they might not want to hear. So that's been incredibly challenging, but it's also taught me really great lessons that I feel are really going to apply in the real world when I start working.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And one thing I don't think a lot of people necessarily understand about running a Model UN conference, whether it's at the high school level or at the university level, is that every single conference that's being run is literally its own business. And a lot of these conferences have a 5-figure or 6-figure. They're dealing with 5-figure, 6-figure numbers. And it's just, whenever you're a student and you've never had to deal with that much money, or even you're in the position to work with other people, it can be pretty overwhelming. And there's so much to take in. And one of the things I'm curious to hear from you is, whenever it comes to, you know, being a student, being the secretary general, and also having a social life, if you have time for that, that is, how are you balancing it all?
How am I balancing it all? Something I learned somewhere along the line last year was that it was really important to maintain a work-life balance. It's very easy to get consumed by everything, either McMun or everything academic or everything regarding any of your other extracurriculars. But I realized that it is really important to time for free. And I think I learned that, it sort of became infused in every aspect of my life. So take a Sunday night when I knew that I had a lot of things to do for McMun, but I would sit down and I'd say, what's more helpful? Me sitting down here for 5 hours and ripping my hair as I would like to, or me sitting down, making a nice dinner for myself, drinking a glass of wine, watching an episode of a TV show, and then getting back to work. And I think when I did that, I saw the results both in terms of my own efficiency and in terms of kind of how I felt and how happy I was. Right now, everybody's been coming up to me and saying, like, are you incredibly stressed? And I mean, while the stress level is still is higher than it would normally be because the conference is in a week, I've still managed to kind of go exercise at the gym and cook great meals for myself and make time for reading before bed. And I think that it seems counterintuitive because I'm saying you should spend less time in aggregate working on what you should be doing. But I find that once you start looking at your time in this sense, you become significantly more efficient with the time that you do have to work on your tasks, either academic or extracurricular.
Wow, that was really interesting. There was a lot of points there. And you know, one of the things that you and I were talking about before we started this munCast, and you were saying that you're feeling a lot of stress as the conference is just a few days away, but you're also feeling weird when you don't feel stress because of just the scale and the size of the conference. And I found that to be really interesting with your response.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so another question I want to ask you from your perspective, being the section of McMun, do you have any advice for other conferences or any other secretary generals for the upcoming spring conferences?
Any advice in terms of at the actual conference? And I mean, this may change after I've actually experienced the conference, but the biggest advice I've seen I would give based on my own behavior as a secretariat member last year and kind of seeing secretary generals at the conference is when you're at the conference, make time or make sure to enjoy yourself and take a step back, look around, and have fun, because it's very easy with the stress of the conference going on and everybody running around to kind of get wrapped up in that, and if that happens, the time just flies by, and before you know it, it's the Sunday night, the conference is over, and you feel like you haven't really taken it all in. So it'll feel at the conference like everything is going wrong, like there are constant problems, but that's something to expect when you have 2,000 people in a hotel walking around and all doing their own thing. So I think based on what I experienced last year and what I've seen also at our high school conference is to make time to sleep, eat, talk to people, enjoy yourself, and make sure that you're kind of getting out of this, especially if it's your last conference, making sure that you're getting out of it what you want to get out of it. More broadly, my advice to conferences, and I think this is also something that McMun should take in future years, is not to sacrifice conference quality for conference size. And I've seen this happen so much with our own conferences as well, is just looking at the conference and equating a larger conference with a better conference. I think in a lot of cases, increasing the size can actually have the opposite effect. So, for example, a couple years back, McMun, they decided to increase the General Assemblies to 340 people each. And I mean, yes, that gave you, what, like 80 people more at the conference, which is not a negligible budgetary increase. But I think the benefit you got from more money out of that was lost in how unhappy those 340 people were in the General Assembly with 339 other people to compete against. I mean, I think especially, I was talking about this with Kevin Felix Chan the other day about how there's kind of a sweet spot for conference size, and that's probably around like 1,200 to 1,400. And once you get really significantly above that, you start to really lose out on some of the more quality aspects of the conference.
That's really interesting. You brought up so many good points that I'd really love to touch on. And one of the things is that this is right before McMun, so I'm really hoping that in the coming weeks or even months we can talk again about McMun and what your experience was like during the conference and how it felt to go through it all. And so that's one thing that I hope we can do in the future. But kind of transitioning away because I don't want to make this munCast too long. Although there's been so many interesting points that you've raised, and I've really appreciated it. I want to sort of end with a question for you, and it's going to be a sort of random question, but I'm really interested to hear your response to it. Okay, and so here it is. Are you ready?
Yes. Is it like a job interview question where like how many gas stations are there in the United States?
Well, damn, now I have to ask a different question. No, it was not that question. It's a little bit more lighthearted. So
Okay.
It's not going to be a trivia question where you have to do that. So here it is. Would you rather have Canada be referred to as the Republic of America's hat, or never be able to fly in an airplane or take a taxi or drive a car or use any other type of public transit ever again?
Oh my gosh, that's cruel.
It's a good question. And we're all very interested.
I have to evaluate. I am seriously evaluating my allegiance to Canada right now.
You are, really?
Wait, so never being able to fly in an airplane or drive in a taxi, or what's the third one?
Or take any public transit. And so I should also basically you can only walk or run places, or bike. We'll let you have a bike and use a scooter, a non-electric scooter, that is.
Man, I mean, to be quite honest, gun to my head, I think Canada's gonna have a new name. Honestly, to be honest, Canada, I'm not much of a nationalistic person anyway, and I'm probably gonna move to the US. So, and I really need that airplane. So I think Canada is gonna have to be the Republic of America's hat.
Wow. Well, I want to say thank you so much for the honesty on that. I think most people would have just stuck with their guns and say I'm walking everywhere for the rest of my life. But I think you sort of highlight just how important it is to get around in today's society. But Marta, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule this week to sit down with me and have this conversation on munCast. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. This was awesome, and it was great, apart from everything, to also catch up with you, Aaron.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to say, not just to you, but to your team and to all of your staff, as well as the delegates. I want to wish everybody a good luck at MIC1 this week, and I hope every single aspect from committee to McParte to the pub crawl goes well. And if there are any crises that arise, that you guys are well equipped to handle them. So I want to wish everyone good luck for this upcoming week.
Thank you. I will relay that to everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marta. I will talk to you very soon. Again, good luck. And this is Aaron signing off. Have a good one, guys.